Welcome to the Snap UK podcast for all the news, views and opinions on this side of the pond for the NFL. Good evening, gentlemen. You've been drafted in tonight, with the exception of 4th Inches, who's been drafted by the Giants or is stuck in a toilet. Both the same, whatever. We are here today to discuss the NFL draft for 2021. So, Gary, John and Jim, did we all stay up and watch?
Most of it.
Yeah.
No, I fucking didn't.
Being honest, I went to work and watched it.
I watched the first pick and I got pissed off. It was just taking so long. I went to sleep.
You watched the most predictable pick then.
Yeah.
It did take,
I was like, this is going to tell me nothing new.
And the Jags used a lot of time for what was the most predictable pick since Andrew Luck.
They must have done a good 25 minutes on that pick.
Well, they only get 15, don't they? But
10.
It felt like a long time. Is it 10 now?
10 now, yeah.
Right, it's too long. They should
It
have
did feel longer than 10.
3 minutes each. That's all they should have. Anyway, we'll get to that in a second. Before we dive into all the in-depth draft information, especially from round one, we need to have a conversation about Aaron. Because the news this week is dominated entirely by the grumpiest man in professional sports, and whether or not he's right to be forcing his way out of his contract with the Green Bay Packers. I have my opinions. I should imagine you guys have yours. Who wants to get us off and running with the Aaron Rodgers news?
I'll go. Why not?
On then.
So, Rodgers, on the day of the draft, allowed it potentially to be leaked that he was seeking a trade as he was disillusioned. Now, he's also in the middle of contract extension talks at the same time. And obviously clearly unhappy with last year's draft and the GM. So he apparently named 3 teams that he would be happy to play for. The Raiders, the Niners and the Broncos. We obviously know he's either got engaged or married, one of the two. I can never remember because that's celebrity stuff. And I'm sure that has a bearing on not wanting to be in Green Bay as well. Because I get whipped all the time. So that's how these things work, isn't it, Jim? So, but basically, he's not happy. He's the MVP. He wants to win Super Bowls to get his legacy, or he wants to play somewhere warm and somewhere he's wanted. And he doesn't feel that. So they've made some massive mistakes in Green Bay that's led to this. And he dropped it. I don't know. It's a strange one. I think if he really wanted to be traded, this would have happened a month ago. So he either wants to retire but blame it on somebody else, or it's just contract negotiations being played out in the public.
I agree with your point there. That if he really wanted to be traded, he would have done what Deshaun Watson did, and like as soon as the season ended, not everything that Deshaun Watson did.
Don't do that.
He would have done what Deshaun Watson did in a footballing sense, and right at the end of the season, come out and said, "I don't want to be at Green Bay anymore." And there were, I can't remember what it was, but there was something at the end of that NFC Championship game where there were hints dropped that he wasn't happy. Now, by all intents and purposes, efforts have been made by the Green Bay Packer hierarchy to placate him, and apparently they've flown out to California 2 or 3 times to meet with him, and they've offered him a contract extension, but he doesn't want an extension. He wants a new contract. He's massively pissed off about what happened last year when they traded up to draft Jordan Love in the first round, and from the Packers side of things, look, you've got an MVP quarterback. You've got probably definitely one of the top 10 quarterbacks ever to play the game. In my view, he's a brilliant quarterback. I've never liked his attitude, but you can't fault his footballing abilities. But the Packers seem to go out their way not to keep him happy. Like you think about over the last 10, 15 years, they've drafted 2 offensive players in the first round. One of them's a lineman.
I think it's since 2005, isn't it?
Yeah, something like that.
Years or something.
Yeah. Two offensive players, one of them being an O lineman and the other one being being Jordan Love, the quarterback. Now, if Green Bay had an amazing defense that was stopping everyone and not conceding, touchdown after touchdown, fair enough. But they've never had a brilliant, stellar defense. So they seem, for me, I can't blame Rodgers for it. He's pissed, dropped the bomb as soon as, at the most inopportune time for the Packers. Because, we all know Rodgers can hold a grudge. He doesn't talk to his family, for crying out loud. He doesn't care about what the Packers hierarchy think. And if I was the Packers, I'd say, right, fair enough, go. We'll get what we can for you now because you're at your probably height of the trade value. We could probably get 2-1s at least. And we'll use that, and we'll hope that Jordan Love is worthy of that first-round pick. I think it's a done deal. I think either either Rodgers retires or he's traded. I don't think he's back in Green Bay.
Okay, that's not where I expected you to leave that. You don't think he's coming back there at all?
No, I think it's done.
I
honestly think it's done.
I'm prepared to go either way with this argument because I just like to have an argument for the sake of it. I'll tell you why Green Bay can't let this happen. Because we cannot allow the NFL to turn into the NBA where players dictate where they play, who they play with, and who's in charge of the teams. That would be a disaster. Green Bay need to stand up for themselves and say, you're under contract, you're paid handsomely, we're offered you an extension. If you don't want it, that's fine. But you play this season or you retire.
So he'll retire. He doesn't need the money, and he's got a job with Jeopardy to go to.
Yeah, that's fine. But what I'm saying is they shouldn't just bow and trade him. They should make him play.
What would you do, though? If you're the Packers, you can get 2 first-round picks to help rebuild your offense.
But now that doesn't help you until next year. It's too late.
Doesn't matter, though, does it? At least you're building for the future. Like, if Jordan Love is worth the first-round pick that you paid for him, plus extra because you gave up a fourth to trade up, then he should be able to play after a year, right?
If you bought a car that you decided you didn't like, would you scrap it or sell it at a loss?
Yeah. Even if they get...
But it's not the same thing. It's not the same.
It is exactly the same thing because Rodgers, whether you like it or not, he has a value.
Yeah.
He's an asset, isn't he? If you take away that other human side of it, he's an asset.
Yeah.
So you're going to allow that asset to devalue to zero, or are you going to maximise its profit to you?
I think if you don't, then 31 other teams are going to find they've got revolts on their hands. Like the Seahawks have been suppressing with Russell Wilson.
Yeah, but
the Texans were fighting with Watson before he touched up a load of women. Like, the owners don't want this, and Green Bay are now the focus of this because of what's happened with Watson. Wilson seems to have retracted a little bit since he was given some say. The owners don't want the NBA model because that means less power for them. So I think they might say to him, you retire, that's fine. If he retires, he has to pay them 30-odd million.
Doesn't matter, though, does it? He's got hundreds of millions in the bank already.
240 million he's earned.
But the difference between Packers and those other players you mentioned Rodgers, and then the other players you mentioned was, Rodgers is 37. That's fine to retire at 37. Like, no one's going to bat an eyelid that a quarterback retires early. Not everyone is going to want to play to the 45. No. Can he? Yes, probably. If he retires now, he's won a Super Bowl. He's in a situation he doesn't want to be in. Like, it's not like Deshaun Watson or if Patrick Mahomes suddenly for a fit and decided he wants out of the Chiefs. Those are young guys, young players. Rodgers is towards the end of his career. I still think he's got 3 or 4 years in him, but only if he wants to. And if he doesn't want to, and if he doesn't want to in Green Bay, he's going to go off and do his own thing. He'll get a job doing something. Like,
yeah, of course
he can become an analyst on TV. He can go and host Jeopardy. Like, his future wife is a well-paid film star. Money isn't an issue for Aaron Rodgers.
But it's not about money. It's about revenge. He wants to get rid of, and I can't pronounce the guy's name, but we're going to call him Gutekunst because that's what he is.
Gutekunst.
Yeah, like, just sack him. If Green Bay are that bothered, just sack the guy, and Aaron Rodgers will shut straight up and carry on playing for him.
Probably.
That's the halfway house. Just sack the guy.
But then why would you? You're not going to get rid of the ownership structure in Green Bay. It's not like you got a Jerry Jones, but you've got like thousands of owners because it's sort of shareholder owner. And now they're going to sack a GM who has just gone through the draft and rebuilt their roster.
Well, and had 2 13-3 seasons.
Or exactly. Seasons. But that's with Aaron Rodgers at the helm. Like, are you going to have that with Jordan Love?
That's the halfway house. That's my point. That is the only compromise where I think everybody ends up happy except Brian Goodkunst because he'll be out on his arse. But who cares about him?
John, you're the
Come on.
diplomat amongst us,
He is.
and you are being diplomatically silent. So, wade in,
It's
buddy.
fair.
Jump off the
To be
fence.
fair, I was on mute. But
Was that who you were waving to?
he was waving. I could say he was waving to me. I mean, no. If he doesn't want to play, then yeah, to let him retire would be, what is it? Biting your nose to spite your face. It would just be an awful decision. Trade him. I know it makes your team worse and someone else is better, but you'll get recompense for that. Whereas if you let him retire, you'll get some money back. And great. You've still got a rubbish team. I don't have a problem with player power because, the owners work in a system which benefits them. The whole thing is to benefit the owners, not the players. So I don't mind the players have speaking up and wanting more. This one though, just it was poorly timed, and it seems because doing it the day of the draft, unless this has been going around and it's only just become public.
Yeah,
but
I think that's
unless if this hasn't been blowing about since they screwed up the championship game, then as well, it just makes the Jordan Love pick look even worse, doesn't it?
He timed this perfectly. No, he didn't time it badly. He waited a year to the day since they humiliated him in the draft and said, right, screw you guys. And that is exactly what he's like.
I'll tell you one thing as well about this player power thing. These are professional sports people that are at the top of their game, that are trying to make sure that they have, in a very short career, the best career they can possibly have. They're so well paid. They are not moving for money.
No.
So it's not like they're moving because they want to earn an extra $100,000 a week or anything. It's not about money, is it, for these people? So I think we have to take that into consideration as well, is that organisation, if they want the top talent, they've got to build an organisation that can live up to their competitiveness and their aspirations. If they don't, then it's not on the player to just sit there and waste its career. The organisation will be there for 100 years. But the players, they haven't got time to wait for a better GM. Aaron Rodgers has got a window.
Who's Aaron Windows?
He's got a window of like
pick.
2 years probably to win a Super Bowl.
Yeah,
and if he thinks Green Bay aren't going to do that, then he needs to leave, doesn't he? There's no point going, they upset me with Jordan Love or any of that other kind of crap. That might be important, but if he doesn't think Green Bay are going to give him the opportunity to win a Super Bowl, then why is he there?
My argument there is, if you're worried about, I want a Super Bowl, why state that the two of the three teams that you're willing to join are the Broncos and the Raiders?
Yeah.
Because that is not you're not going for competitiveness there. You're joining a project, and
but you've seen the Bucks, right? In a year, with Brady go from utter shite, they were not good. I was listening to one of our podcasts, and I was talking about how their defensive line basically couldn't move. They were so old, and you can move into win now very quickly in the NFL. So if you put Aaron Rodgers into a team, it makes it hugely better, and there's definitely a chance of him going into the Raiders, certainly, or the Broncos. The Broncos' defense isn't terrible.
No, it's good.
No.
So all I'm saying is, you put Aaron Rodgers on that Broncos team, and it is a very different world.
I think that's a great team. They've got a decent O-line now. They've got wide receivers. They've got a tight end. They've got a decent running game. They've got good defense. I know they're in the same division as the Chiefs, but you wouldn't bet against the Broncos. I don't think with Aaron Rodgers under centre.
Immediately, but anyone with Aaron Rodgers except the Raiders would be a contender. But before we move on from this, then, what I will say is I've spent a year listening to mainly Gary say that the Tampa Bay Bucks are playing fantasy football by having everybody want to go and sign and play with Brady. You give player power to people and let them move around like they like. That's all you're going to see. So that's something you've hated for a year. You're now justifying.
No, he just hates Brady.
We hate Brady.
Yeah, I hate Brady. Like, let's be serious. But no, I'm not a massive fan of just building a team for a year. I'm not saying that should be the norm, but I'm also saying, to John's point around player power, that they're not in prison. It's not, they're not being, you can't force them. It's not like, I bought a monkey and it's going to do whatever tricks I like. That's not how it works, is it?
No.
So it's,
But it's another step towards letting players decide where they're drafted. If you keep going on down that road, and you don't.
There's a difference between a 37-year-old 3 times MVP deciding he wants out.
That's fine.
Because he's
after agency.
Because after 14 years, they didn't tell him they were moving up to pick his replacement. That's the difference.
What I think this is the difference is Michael is the only person on this call who owns his own business and sets his own rules. And the rest of us are all institutionalised. And it does make a difference. Because when I used to train down the gym with Ali, he used to say the same kind of stuff. And I think it changes your opinion when you own something, when you own a vision, you own the assets. It does change your opinion, whether when you're a cog in a large piece or whether it is something that you built, that you put into. I think it does change your opinion of how that should work.
Sure. Yeah, you're probably right. I mean, I hadn't thought about it like that, but I think that's a very fair point. I just think you get the opportunity to move every 3 or 4 years, depending on your contract. He didn't take it. He stayed there. He got paid a load of money. Now he doesn't like it. You've got a contract for a reason.
But they didn't tell him they were going to give him no weapons. Yeah. They've signed Aaron Rodgers III in like the 5th round to be a wide receiver. Yeah, they didn't tell him. Do you know what, Aaron? We're going to waste the last years of your career by drafting a quarterback to sit on the sidelines for 3 years. He didn't even take a snap last year.
No.
I don't even think he was the backup.
What a waste of time.
Yeah, absolutely. And even the 49ers told Jimmy Garoppolo, okay, I mean, it's pretty obvious, but they told him, we're going to draft a quarterback. Now, the 49ers don't know Garoppolo anything, really. The guy's been injured for 3 out of the last 4 seasons he's played.
At least Garoppolo has, taken snaps.
Yeah.
The Bears rang Andy Dalton to tell him, by the way, we're taking a quarterback.
Well,
he's not even taking a snap for them. He's not taking a snap.
Let's dive into that, seeing as that's where we've strayed to, because I think the Rodgers thing will run longer than you might think. I don't think that's going away anytime soon.
Oh no, that's going to run until he's either traded or retires.
It feels messy.
Yeah.
Right.
Anyway,
moving
what else
on.
Happened?
Can we get Duncan on next week just to give us a different point of view?
I'm not sure he's in any position to do an interview about this. He's absolutely heartbroken, isn't he?
He's still sitting in the corner, rocking back and forth, crying.
Right.
If we wait 2 weeks, we can see it in real life.
Yeah, looking forward to it. The draft last Thursday night.
Well, Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
Yep, we can skip through pick number 1 very quickly. The Jags spent all of their 10 minutes to pick Trevor Lawrence for no reason at all, and are the perfect example of why teams should only get 3 minutes on the clock.
They were just enjoying Kings of Leon and the old singer from Heart.
Kings of Leon have aged well, have they?
Kings of Leon, they were very good. There was a choir on beforehand who were pretty awful.
I did not see
so
that.
Bad. It
Oh
was so
God.
bad.
It was painfully bad. Anyway, let's talk about the football.
So, Trevor Lawrence, I don't want to talk about it, other than the fact that it's going to be a flop because he's gone to the Jags. Other than that, we don't need to talk about it. That's it.
He's have a great year 6.
Terrible hair.
I don't get to comment on that.
I'm making no judgments.
We also don't have any Jets fans on here, but Zach Wilson was the consensus pick for them for about the last 6 or 7 weeks. What do we think? I saw him on there and I thought, yeah, fine, but year 1 could be a disaster, is what I think.
I think you have to look beyond Zach Wilson and look at what else they did in the draft, because I think they made some very shrewd moves in drafting Elijah Vera-Tucker and also Elijah Moore as well. So, yeah, we said it last week. He's had one good season at BYU. He's played lesser competition. He's had when he did go up against a team which was slightly better, he struggled. He shows phenomenal talent. I think he's in a much better position with this Jets team than Sam Darnold was with his rookie Jets team. So I think the Jets have done a much better job this time and building around him. So I think he stands a much better chance of success. I'm not convinced by him. I think he does look great throwing in shorts and t-shirt on a practice field. Yep, he can make those throws. What's he going to be like against the Patriots? I don't know.
So they took Elijah Vera Tucker at number 14, the second pick.
Yeah,
in the first
traded
round.
up to get that pick as well, which was
Right.
I thought a really good move because I think he's the best defensive guard in the draft.
And the thing about this is they've immediately done something they didn't do for Sam Darnold, which is get him a personal protector straight away.
Yeah.
So I like the move. It shows that they've learned something. It shows that they are investing in him early on. It's him, the player, like you've just said, that causes me concern. If he doesn't blossom by the end of year one, that you get that New York pressure because he isn't sitting behind someone else.
I will say, I mean, the rumours are he started looking into that before the draft, where he was ringing old Jets players and asking for their Jets quarterbacks as well, and asking for their opinion. So at least he's doing his homework. I mean, if you look at the Jets full draft, yes, they got obviously Zach Wilson was their first pick, Elijah Vera Tucker, the offensive guard, second. Then they picked Elijah Moore, the wide receiver. Then they picked a running back. So they are building around him, and the rest of the picks were defense. But that top 4 picks are all solid offensive players who are probably, Michael Carter will probably get some game time. The other 3, I think, are starters. Remembering in free agency, they've also brought in Corey Davis as well. They've got a half-decent tight end. They've got Tristan Wirfs, the offensive tackle from last year, and a better offensive line. So like I said, I think he's in a better position. He's got a new coach. This is a new scheme. Mike LaFleur, the offensive coordinator, is going to be running, and he does fit that scheme. But yeah, we'll see. I think we said it last week. I think out of all the quarterbacks, all the quarterbacks taken in round 1, if you were to say to me which one's going to most likely to flop, I'd still say Zach Wilson.
Yeah, I'm afraid I'd agree with you. I just look at it and think it's the Jets. Same reason I think Lawrence might struggle to start with. It's the Jags. It's all about where you land. And I'm just not so. Robert Saleh is getting a lot of credit in advance as well, and I don't like that. He's a great defensive coach. What makes you think he can coach Zach Wilson? I'm not sure. I'm not sold on it yet. But
I don't think it's him. I think it's more down to Mike LaFleur, the offensive coordinator.
But that's like saying, Hugh Jackson's staff could have done a better job. They're under the umbrella of a particular scheme.
Mike LaFleur was playing under Shanahan in the 49ers, not playing, coaching under the 49ers with Shanahan, and he helped get Garoppolo to a Super Bowl. So, but is Zach Wilson better than Garoppolo? No, he's on a par.
Well, not yet. He's not.
We don't know.
So far, he's enough. Let's be honest.
Like all of them.
Gary's rejoining the show.
Gary's back.
Right.
Just in time for the 49ers pick as well.
Yeah, pick 3 then. The 49ers from the Mac Jones scope string evaporated very quickly, and Trey Lance was the pick. Right?
Silence. I was waiting for Gary to chip in.
I was going to let you take it first.
Look, I won't lie. I jumped off the couch. I was that happy. Me and John were on a Zoom call, and he would have heard me exclaim "yes," and I literally jumped off the couch in excitement. I think during the day, rumours had been growing that it was Lance that was going to be picked. I desperately tried not to get my hopes up. I'm happy I didn't, because I think if it was Matt Jones at 3, I still would have been quite disappointed. Look, I think Trey Lance. Interesting factoid I heard about Trey Lance. Tom Brady's been playing in the league longer than Trey Lance's age.
Oh, yes.
So he's only 20. He's played 1 season, which is a concern. He's only thrown like 300 passes. That's a massive concern. But he went 17-0 in his 1 season, didn't throw an interception. Look, he's got all the ability to be a superstar in this league. But you can say that about pretty much every draft pick in the first round. Whether he is or not is down to him, down to his work ethic, and down to how Shanahan coaches him up. But I think he's in the best possible position to realise that talent.
I think the reason I was pleased is they picked the player with the most potential. which often coaches don't do. And it's been so long since, as a 49ers fan, I think, there was a lot of hope with Jimmy. And, he did take us to a Super Bowl. We can't forget that. And obviously New England, didn't really want to trade him at the time. Belichick was clear. But the excitement around this guy, he's the modern quarterback. And it makes you think that Shanahan is looking to build a dynasty. He's looking at, 2, 3, 4 years, 5 years down the line. Not just, I need to win a Super Bowl now. And I think that shows quite a lot of maturity and confidence in his position to be able to take the best or the most talented player and give himself some time. And when I did the pick in the draft, I think we said I think he will sit behind Jimmy G for a good at least half a season, unless there's an injury. And I think it's the right thing to do.
Season, yeah.
I think even if you play him and you don't have to tell him to pass the ball, like he's got the running ability. And yeah, you're right. Garoppolo got us to the Super Bowl, but that running game got us to that Super Bowl. Like you look at those 2 playoff games, you put Trey Lance in Shanahan's run scheme, and it's another dimension. And also, you look at the receivers that the 49ers have. You could effectively play with 5 wide receivers, and then Brandon Ayuk or Deebo Samuel or even George Kittle at a pinch can be a running threat, as well as Trey Lance. So you're setting up the defense with 5 wide receivers or 5 receivers to defend that, and then suddenly you're running the ball. You'll make 10 yards. Like I think Shanahan is going to have a field day with that type of talent.
I think we're sometimes a bit harsh on Jimmy, because if you look at some of the stats, especially in that Super Bowl, he had some of the best stats in the league in lots of things. He bounces back very well from interceptions and all sorts of things. There is a lot worse quarterbacks out there than Jimmy G when he's fit.
There absolutely is. What I think Jimmy G is a good quarterback, not a great quarterback. He's a great game manager. He doesn't make that many mistakes. But he's not someone that excites you. He's not someone that I think defensive coordinators have to plan for.
No, and that's the point I was coming to. Like the Mac Jones pick would have been more of the same.
Yeah.
And that's why Jimmy G wanted him in New England. And that's why Mac Jones is wanted in New England, is because they want people who won't make mistakes. They want a great defense and people who don't make mistakes and do as they're told. They don't really want a renegade. They don't want a modern quarterback. They want to be very controlled. And that's fine if that's what their scheme's going to do.
Yeah, whereas Shanahan wants someone on the field who, when the play breaks down, is going to think for himself a little bit. And Lance's decision making is brilliant. It's one of his key assets, and I think that's what That's what Shanahan gets with Lance under centre.
Yeah, I think you have to look at Jimmy G and think, what was the biggest difference in that Super Bowl where you lost?
Not that much.
Well, yeah, but so that's my point is, when the plays broke down for the opposition,
what
did their quarterback
tweet
do?
from me?
Yeah.
and I just think Shanahan looks at those 2 Super Bowls and thinks, with a more dynamic quarterback in either of those games,
you'd have been 2-0.
Probably at least one, if not both of those games.
Yeah.
So he's moved on from Matt Ryan and Jimmy G eventually to closer to Patrick Mahomes, if you like. That's where he's going.
Like, remember, this isn't the first time Shanahan's had this type of quarterback. Like he was the offensive coordinator for the Washington football team when RG3 came into the league. He's worked with a running quarterback before.
Yeah,
and
not that they wanted him, because they did. But whatever. No, your point is valid. But and John, I saw a look on your face. I'm not saying that he's going to be Patrick Mahomes. I'm just saying on the sliding scale, if you had someone closer to that instead of Matt Ryan and Jimmy G, he's probably 1-1 or 2-0 in Super Bowls.
Well, my question is only going to be, when's Gary going to get a Lance shirt and just fuck his career up completely?
Never. We've had this. He's banned.
You made him banned.
Yeah, he's only allowed to buy shirts of retired or dead players, preferably dead, so they can't die again.
I will.
This did get discussed very early on.
You're allowed to buy a Dwight Clark jersey.
The number 3 pick conversation by saying, is this a pick of a coach who is entirely confident in his contract?
Yes. Yeah, I think so.
Because that's what it felt like to me. Like he could just go out there and say, we're taking Kellen Mond, and they would have gone, all right then. Like it just feels to me like they're not getting rid of him.
No, he's so far from the hot seat. I think even I know we've had some bad season whilst Jimmy G's been injured, but even in a lot of those games with CJ Beathard and Nick Mullins, we've been competitive, and that's saying something.
Well, that's true.
I did hear a podcast where they were calling him Teflon Shanahan.
Potentially, yeah, because
he's only had one winning season.
Yeah.
And there is all this talk of him being an offensive genius, but we don't, tend to score 30-plus points most games. And Jim is much more
a fit quarterback.
No, but Jim has always been much more sold on Shanahan than I have. I am, it's difficult when they get to a Super Bowl. I think that buys you a few years, at least another 2 or 3 years, doesn't it? It shows you can build a roster.
Unless you're Doug Pedersen.
Yeah. that has fallen apart, let's be honest.
Yeah, that has fallen apart. Okay, speaking of teams that fall apart, the Atlanta Falcons picked at number 4. They took the best player on the board, which was Kyle Pitts. 2 questions then. Firstly, is this the end of Julio Jones? Now they've got another dynamic playmaker.
I hope not.
No, I don't think so.
I don't think it is.
Think he's staying in Atlanta?
I really want him to stay. So I want to see this offense with Kyle Pitts, Julio Jones, and Calvin Ridley, with a good quarterback thrown to them.
Yeah, agree.
So exciting.
And I agree with that as well. And then, so the second part of that is, are we set for probably at least 3 more years of Matt Ryan in Atlanta? And is everybody okay with that? Because I think
2.
He's been really underrated in a team that's savagely bad.
Yeah. He's been in a terrible team. I don't think it's never been the offense that's been the problem in Atlanta.
The only time it's the offense, maybe like that, the last 4 minutes when the defense is letting them down.
Yeah. And they've been on the pitch the whole time.
They've been on the pitch. There's nothing wrong with the offense. The offense was good and has just got better. They're still short of a great running back, which they still need, but I mean, if suddenly Kyle Pitts can play defense and play cornerback, they'll be fine.
Sadly, as good as he is, I don't think that's happening. So we get to the number 5 pick, and this was the first place in the draft where there may be some divisive opinions. That's hard to say. Then I thought
it's the Bengals, and they fucked up.
Well, okay, let's break this down then. So we, in general, as a podcast, felt they should have protected Joe Burrow, taken Penis Ewell, and actually kept him upright, But they took instead the most dynamic wide receiver that Joe Burrow wanted. So back to the player power discussion from before we started. They've done perhaps right by Burrow and not necessarily by the franchise. What do we think?
Well, I heard a few different podcasts in the week leading up to, and there was quite a bit of talk about Peni sliding. So, it was unexpected. We had him going definitely there. We thought it was the right choice, but there was a lot of talk that he was just not going to be taken. There's enough teams that need O-linemen, but this wide receiver class looks very impressive, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And you can argue which one you think the best one is, and I think Jim's got his own opinions, but there is 3 or 4 that look, superb. And was it the best O-line class ever? I'm not certain.
No.
Well, time will tell. I mean, look, they did exactly what we expect them to in terms of their first 2 picks consisted of a wide receiver and an offensive tackle. Jamar Chase is a fabulous player, and I think he's going to be awesome with Joe Burrows, and he'll score lots of touchdowns, lots of yardage. I think he'll be brilliant, and I'm really happy that he's wearing the number 1 shirt in Cincinnati as well. I think that looks class.
That's going to look great, especially when he's catching passes from Brandon Allen. Week 7.
That's my problem. Is that I just like okay? So your second pick was offensive lineman Jackson Carman. Nothing against Carman, not great player, good player, but I think he's not what in terms of kind of potential. Penny Sewell or Rashawn Slater, I think, are up there, and will be your franchise left tackle for years to come. I don't think Jackson Carman's going to be that. I could be completely wrong, of course, but I just think you probably coming off that horrible ACL injury as well. Like, give the kid a chance. Like, you can't. I think Griff, you said it on our WhatsApp group at the time. It's like it's difficult to throw to Chase when you're on your backside.
Yeah,
That's my problem.
I love the player. I just think it's another case of the Bengals have talked themselves into something that ultimately may not pay off. Now, let's not forget they've got to replace AJ Green, so they do need one of these players. But if you'd have told me they took Penis Ewell and then, I don't know, Kadarius Toney in the second round or Bateman in the second round, I'd have been happier than this way round, taking Jamar Chase and an O-lineman who may well not be in the league in 2 years.
So, but Kadarius Toney was never going to go in the second round because he was too much talent for that.
What I'm getting at is it would have changed the dynamic of the draft if they took Penis Ewell, but they didn't.
Probably, yeah.
So,
but, I mean, there were lots of wide receivers left on the second day that they could have taken. Like, okay, so Elijah Moore was gone because the Jets picked him up the second round pick. But then after the Bengals, I mean, Tevin Jenkins, I think, would have been a better pick if you're going to take a tackle. If they would have got Jamar Chase and Tevin Jenkins, I'll probably be sitting here going, do you know what? I'm all right with that. I think it's because of it's because of who they picked at tackle. I'm like, I don't get it. Like Rondale Moore was there. He's a good wide receiver. Terrence Marshall was there.
Yeah, that would have been my pick that way around. Terrence Marshall. It just feels very Bengals.
It does, and it shows that they're the team with the lowest budget for scouting departments. And I just feel that just shows again. I hate that.
You'll be getting a job there soon.
I probably could.
Okay, let's leave.
Not that they'd pay me.
Let's leave the Bengals behind. No. Let's leave the Bengals behind because that's what everybody does, and move on to the 6th overall pick, the Miami Dolphins. They stay where they are. They decide this is it. This is us. We're taking Jalen Waddle. We're giving Tua weapons. It's another reunification of a quarterback with a wide receiver that he played with in college. I love this pick for the Dolphins. I think this is absolutely what Tua deserves. Give him the weapons, and I think he will deliver in year 2. And Waddle is going to be excellent.
Yep. You look at the wide receiver court now in Miami. You've got Waddle, Will Fuller, and Devontae Parker, as well as Mike Gesicki at tight end. I want to see Tua take that step up. I don't think he was very good last year. I think now he's got that familiarity in terms of his buddy. Go make it happen.
They took another good blocking tight end as well, didn't they, in the draft? In one of the later rounds. Which
they did.
It's got quite good.
The name escapes me, if I'm perfectly honest with you, but I did see that. But they we will cover it further down, but they also took Jalen Phillips on the defensive side. Well, we'll cover it now while we're here because they had the 18th overall pick as well. Now, Jalen Phillips had slipped off a lot of people's radar because he'd been retired. There were injury concerns. I think this was a little bit high for a player that you don't know is going to be available. But if he's available, he's a top 3 defensive prospect in this draft. He's amazing. So there's nothing wrong with a home run at number 6 and a great swing at number 18. This team can afford to do that because they're so well run and they're so nicely stocked with players.
He's the first defensive edgeman off the board, and I do think he was the best. Yes, he's got concerns in terms of injury and his retirement, but he showed that he's back for Miami college. That is last year. He can get to the quarterback. There's another. We're going to get to it. I'm not going to talk about him right now. The Baltimore Ravens edge defender. At least Jalen Phillips has got production. Like they've probably seen quite
a bit as well because he's local. Yeah. I bet they've seen more than most teams. So I bet they probably felt more comfortable than some teams to make that shout because I'm sure they've got close links to that college.
Hunter Long was the tight end you were referring to, by the way.
Hunter Long. Penile sliding.
At number 7, speaking of Long, Penis Ewell is there. He goes to the Lions. And all of a sudden, the Lions are all in on Jared Goff because they've got the best line protector, something that Goff needs in order to be any good. And maybe the Lions were the luckiest beneficiaries in this draft.
Did you see how happy they were?
Yeah.
They're still shit.
Yeah. No one's claiming that they're suddenly going to be topping this division. But in terms of beneficiaries from other teams' picks, this couldn't have fallen better for the Lions.
I mean, there's so many needs on that team. Whoever the best player, it's typical best player available, and they did that. And I think the best player available for them is going to be the franchise left tackle. So whether it's Goff in 2-3 years, doesn't matter. You've got the best player, and you've got him for 5 years locked up. Sign him to another contract after that, and you've got like I say, a 10-year left tackle, and it's one of the most important positions on the team, and you've got that sorted now.
Yeah, it's
one less thing to worry about.
I really like the pick for the Lions. What I don't like is what I heard about Dan Campbell making all of his draft prospects sending him photos of their teeth because he wanted to make sure they could get bites out of the opposition. This guy is a clown coaching.
He looks like Gary Busey, and he's just as mental as Gary Busey. He's a fucking clown. But he's so Lions. He's so Lions. It's mental. It's shit. It's going to be funny. And in 2 years, when he gets fired, I will miss him. I'm sure. I can already feel it, and I'm going to miss this guy.
It's just another franchise that just continually make the wrong decisions.
Yeah.
He's
going for the Hugh Jackson Ineptitude Award, I think. Right, moving on, number 8, Carolina Panthers. Bit of a surprise, this one for me. They take cornerback JC Horn. Now, I like the pick for the need on the team, but it's the wrong player for me. Because at number 9, the Broncos take cornerback Patrick Surtain II, who was the best cornerback in the draft. So these two, what do we make? Both filling reasonable needs, although the Broncos secondary was already good. So
I don't think cornerback was the biggest need for Carolina, but I don't hate the pick because I think he's a good player. I don't think there's too big a difference between JC Horn and Patrick Surtain. I would have Patrick Surtain first. But, there are others in the league who know a lot more about playing cornerback that said JC Horn was the better player, including Richard Sherman. So
I think the most interesting thing about this 1-2 selection that we're talking about, the Cowboys thought they were getting Surtain, definitely.
That was hilarious.
Or
and they talked about it. They talked about it in the interviews beforehand, didn't they, with his father as well, about America's team and all that. Yeah. They definitely thought they were going to the Cowboys. Yep. And I suppose the real important thing to talk about is that the Panthers didn't draft a quarterback when there was two quarterbacks, good quarterbacks on the board. So that's more important to talk about, is the fact that they are all in on Darnold.
Yeah, I mean, they're all in on Darnold. Like I said, cornerback was a need, but I don't think it's the biggest need. I think they would have been better served taking Rashawn Slater. Would have been my pick. Saying that, Carolina had an amazing draft. I think they probably had the best draft of any team in the league. Yeah, really love their draft.
What else about their draft did you particularly enjoy?
Not the Browns, Jim. Not the Browns.
No, not the Browns. Browns had a good draft as well, but I think the Browns had a great draft. But I think Carolina improved the most. I think Terrence Marshall in the second round is a great pickup. Tommy Tremble, the tight end in the third round, was an amazing pickup. Chuba Hubbard is great.
I'm sorry, who?
Chuba Hubbard.
Chuba Hubbard.
I saw him coming. I wanted someone else to say it.
Wasn't that a type of lollipop when we were kids?
Trevor Hubbard, the running back from Oklahoma State, is a good pickup. And even all the way down into the 6th round, Shia Smith, the South Carolina wide receiver, he's gonna get game time. I think if you look across the whole of their draft, I think you've got players there who I think you're going to see on the field this year. Even long snapper Thomas Fletcher, and if you get a chance to watch the video of his phone call, because Matt Rule rings him up and he's like, and Thomas Fletcher's like, yeah, I've not decided where I'm going yet, thinking he's going into undrafted free agency, and Matt Rule's like, no mate, I've drafted you, and he's like, what? Brilliant. I love those phone calls. They're probably one of the best bits about the draft, but that's a particularly good one. Thomas Fletcher, long snapper from Alabama.
Oh, I'll look that up. You definitely enjoyed the draft more than the rest of us.
The massive punter got taken as well, didn't he?
He did,
yeah.
Nothing wrong with taking a flyer on a few of these players.
He won the best punter award, though. That guy, first black guy to ever win best punter.
Excellent. I mean,
here's a little fact for you.
breaking down barriers every day. I really like the fact that the Panthers are clearly all in on Sam Darnold.
Yeah.
I think that's what he needs. And if they build a good team around him, I think he is more than capable of delivering. So this is fine. With regards to the Broncos and the addition of Patrick Surtain, they also didn't take a quarterback, which I thought was surprising considering who was left on the board.
Well, that's because all of Denver thought they were getting Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah.
People started to go to the airport. There was people on the local radio station saying it was a done deal.
Well,
and nothing says Rodgers done deal like not taking an offensive player in the first round of the draft.
That's very true. So so they didn't take a quarterback. Does this mean that they're now stuck with Drew Lock?
Or Teddy Bridgewater?
So they're stuck with Drew Lock because Teddy Bridgewater, all right, he's a game manager, but at least Drew Lock is occasionally dynamic.
Yeah.
Teddy's not, and I've been a big Teddy fan, but he looked anything but dynamic last year. He looked less dynamic than John and I after a 10K walk last week, and that was a sight to see, I promise you. So I just think, okay, they've backed themselves into a corner by not at least taking Justin Fields. I don't get it. What are they doing?
They get better at a strong position. Their defense looks amazing. Hopefully they don't have to score too many points. I don't know. I think when you're in the league with Patrick Mahomes, you've got to make sure you have a good defense.
Yeah.
And that's what they're making sure of.
Fair enough. Okay. I'll take the justification. I didn't like it myself.
I'm not the biggest fan of it.
The player is great, but
yeah.
the pick didn't suit for me. Right. Finally, in the top 10, the Philadelphia Eagles, they did some in-divisional wheeling and dealing. They leapt up and they took Devonta Smith, wide receiver out of Alabama, the reigning Heisman Trophy winner. Now, this is exactly what the Eagles need if they are indeed all in on Jalen Hurts, which they appear to be. So
apparently they are.
Was no one else surprised that the Cowboys agreed to sort of just keep moving?
I felt when those two cornerbacks came off the board, it was almost inevitable that Dallas would trade down, because at that point, there's probably no other player or position like star, which trading down didn't restrict you from getting. Even if they got all the way down to 25, they still would have picked up a player which would have improved their team. So to move down just 2 spots, screw over the Giants. That was probably a nice little added bonus. And then they probably still got the player they probably would have taken at 10.
Yeah, maybe. We'll come to the Cowboys in a minute. But with regards to Devonta Smith, so we've got Waddle, Smith, and
Chase.
Waddle is such a non-wide receiver name, isn't it? Yeah, he's just waddling along.
Especially he's the fastest.
Out of these 3, who are we talking about at the end of the season as the best wide receiver? Who's this year's Justin Jefferson?
Waddle.
Yeah, I think Waddle as well, just because I think he might be in the best position with a second-year quarterback to actually get him the ball. We already know Burrow might not even start the season and doesn't have an O-line.
Tough on Devonta Smith, though, because he did win the Heisman.
Yeah, but let's not get too hung up on that. The Heisman only translates into success 50% of the time.
And he himself said he wouldn't have won the Heisman if Waddle had been fit for the whole year, because the number of passes would have been split between the two of them.
Sure.
I'm worried for all these wide receivers in the first round who've gone to the Bengals. I mean, Rob Burrow is fine, but Chase, I thought Tua was really rubbish he was just so average last year, and he's going to be still splitting reps with Devontae Parker, who was not getting the ball enough as it was.
What interestingly,
and Devontae Smith's gone to the Eagles, which is just wide receiver hell.
They all played he played with Jalen Hurts in college as well, didn't he?
Yeah.
So it's another one they've reunited. But I thought it was quite interesting because we were I wasn't, but Waddle went quite low in our draft. Very low. He went 17 or 18, didn't he, John?
He went
19 to Washington.
Yeah.
19 to Washington.
The way it fell. It's the problem with drafts. You only got to get one wrong, and it absolutely dominoes the rest of the field. But I like all three. They can all play. They can all be difference makers. But history tells you that at least one of these three is going to be a dud. So I'm not sure. I think John's right. I don't think I'd want to be playing on that Eagles team,
No, I wouldn't, because they've still got no offensive line. They've got a wide receiver now. They've got Jalen Hurts at quarterback, who I don't rate, and they've got too many holes in defense.
Giants fans were very pissed with that pick as well, though.
That's
like I said, there's a big benefit for Cowboys is to just screw over the Giants. I won't mind about that. Sorry, John.
It's fine. We knew we could see it was coming.
Yeah, but then it did mean that we then got to see something that had never ever happened before. Because Dave Gettleman traded back in the draft. The first time ever. Not just in the first time in the first round. The first time ever that Dave Gettleman has traded back in the draft, which was the right move. So,
totally was, yeah.
But all three of the players he wanted have gone. Move back, pick up next year's first round pick off the Bears. And, they've still got a decent player at 20.
So Jim's teed us up nicely there for the biggest trade on the night in the first round, as Dave Gettleman does indeed move back, acquires a first-round pick next year for the Giants to select their next quarterback of the future, and allows the Bears to move up to number 11 and reignite some excitement in Chicago as they take Justin Fields, who immediately becomes favourite to start ahead of Andy Dalton, just the way Trubisky started ahead of Mike Glennon. This felt like the Glennon 2.0. And if there'd been a draft party, Dalton would have been there, drink in hand, open mouthed as his successor was named.
At least they've only given Dalton 10 million rather than 45 million.
They've learned something of the lesson.
But I think when they come out with number one quarterback, Andy Dalton, or whatever they were doing on Twitter before, that might get replayed a fair bit.
QB1 was all over Twitter.
Yeah.
It was all over Twitter.
But it's a great pick. Amazing that it fell that low.
How is Ryan Pace still employed? That's my first question. And my second question is, does Justin Fields start the season, or is this a sit for a year project?
I think he'll sit for 7 games.
Until they realise who Andy Dalton is, I think he's sit. As for Ryan Pace, I think most Bears fans would agree with you. How is he still in the role? I think this buys him another 2 years. Because he goes into next year and he's like, probably not going to win many games. We haven't got a first round pick next year. And it's the following year anyway that we expect Justin Fields to start. Wouldn't be surprised though if he did start from day one and Andy Dalton's the backup again.
Yeah, it seems like that might be the way they're angling. I don't think that's the right thing to do with Justin Fields. I think he needs to sit for at least 8 games probably and absorb some of the playbook. But at least he makes Chicago exciting on offense.
Yep.
You can let the season run out a bit, can't you? Because you can go on and go, are we looking like playoff contenders under Dalton? And then you can decide at what point you want to. Well, no, but you say that.
They got to the playoffs with Mitch Trubisky, so let's not rule anything out.
Let's
and then they kicked him out the door.
But it happened with Foles and Trubisky.
Yeah. Yep.
So, and there's obviously extra playoff slots.
Okay.
We saw last year. That makes a difference.
If the Bears' defense is good, then they've got a chance.
I think if they can get anywhere near competing, you'll see Dalton for a lot of the season. But we'll wait and see. Jim's right. It could just be they go with him straight away from week one and go, this is our guy. A lot of people think that Fields and Mac Jones were the most NFL ready, didn't they?
Yeah, I mean, Fields had a good number of starts at Ohio State. Similar weather in terms of playing in cold weather. So I think you need that when you're playing in Chicago. Like, you've got to be able to play in the cold and the wind. He would have done that playing in Ohio. So I wouldn't be surprised if he did start day one.
I don't think that's likely, but I don't think it'll be very long until he's in there. I think the question about the Bears' ability to get into the playoffs is still centered on their defense, and it'll be whichever quarterback causes the least turnovers. Well, for me, that should be Andy Dalton, because I think Justin Fields might get picked off with some of his emphasis on making the play up on the fly. But again, at least it makes them exciting. This should be something that Bears fans are genuinely enthralled by because I think he's a brilliant prospect.
At least for the Bears as well. Like, what's a new quarterback's best friend? It's the tight end. They have 89 tight ends on their squad, so they're fine.
It's probably the most exciting prospect they've had at quarterback forever.
Well, who's their only MVP level quarterback they've ever had? Was it Sid Luckman in the 60s?
Yeah, that's what I mean. They've never had a quarterback throw over 4,000 yards.
Yeah, even when they won the Super Bowl, it was just defense.
It was a defense. Yeah.
Just defense.
Yeah. Defense smash mouth.
Yeah, not ideal. Okay, so the Cowboys, like we say, they moved back. They'd already moved back, and this is not where I thought they would go. So the Cowboys at 12 to linebacker Micah Parsons. Now, 2 or 3 reasons I didn't think this was the right pick. Firstly, character concerns with the player. Secondly, they could have just had Leighton Vander Esch signed onto his 5th-year option, which they haven't done.
That's right, they haven't.
Thirdly, Rashawn Slater is still on the board, and they need to change up the O-line. So
I think this is potentially the best defensive player in this draft, Parsons, and I think that's the reason why they took him. They didn't get the player they wanted, and so then they moved back and got value for that, and then they took the best defensive player on the board.
Replaces Sean Lee.
Yeah, that's the thing.
And Van Der Esch all at the same time.
They didn't pick up the 5th-year option on Van Der Esch either. So
that's what I'm saying. I don't like that move. I think that's short-sighted, if I'm honest. But
he was injured last year, though, wasn't he? Van Der Esch, has he come back really?
No, he's come back. He's missed 13 games over the last 2 years, so that's almost
maybe
half.
They saw something they didn't like at the end of last season. You don't know, do you?
He came into his draft class with a neck injury issue, so it's not a huge shock that he's then injured through 50% of the games over the last 2 years, nearly 50%. I like the pick because I agree with Gary. I think he's a phenomenal player. I don't like the pick from a Cowboys point of view because I think you've got bigger needs elsewhere. And there was other players on the board. I think you could have tried to trade back a bit further. Obviously, there wasn't anyone. No one wanted to bite on that. So take the best player available. That's kind of what they did.
It's as well. Unlike previous years, they don't have a rookie quarterback anymore. They have a quarterback who's on 30-40 million a year.
Yeah.
Leighton Vander Esch is gonna, he's been not picked up the 5th year because of salary cap concerns. That's what they've put out.
Yeah.
That's they have to think about this now. They have gone through his rookie contract.
And Parsons would have gone to the Lions if Peni wasn't available.
Yeah. No, I completely agree with that.
Yeah, he would. The talent buys him this place, and that's fine. I'm not sure anybody thrives with character concerns on the Cowboys. It doesn't tend to work well.
There is hundreds of players in the NFL with character concerns.
Sorry, just say that again, Griff. What did you just say, Griff?
Players with character concerns don't tend to thrive at the Cowboys.
Completely agree. Did you see who they picked in the 4th round?
No, go on.
A guy called Josh Bull, who's an offensive tackle out of Marshall. He got kicked out of Florida and has 11 counts of dating violence against him.
Oh, amazing.
Gets kicked out of Florida. Just remember, Florida's where Aaron Hernandez went to, isn't it? It's difficult to get kicked out.
Yeah, it's quite hard to get kicked out of there. I don't know. We'll see. From a talent point of view, he's a great player. He's in the Devin White, Devin Bush category of linebackers. That's fine. Let's just see how he thrives or otherwise. So, discussing Rashawn Slater, though, he went with the next pick, number 13, to the Chargers. Brilliant. Love this pick for Justin Herbert.
I bet the Chargers couldn't believe that happened. They must have. There wasn't a podium to run up to give it a
pick of the night. Yeah,
it should have been. If it wasn't, it should have been the quickest pick of the night. Brilliant. Nothing to fault on there.
No. Watching it with Jim, we were laughing at the sort of the war rooms because you could sense the Cowboys' war room when their original pick was tense, and then even when they picked Parsons, it was still, you could see that there was sort of putting on a show for the campus, whereas the Chargers were going off their fucking tits.
Of course they were. This is exactly what they needed to keep Herbert upright.
Yeah.
And you don't need to put a lot of pieces around him. He's doing great work with good players already. He just needs to be standing upright, same as we said about Joe Burrow. So moving on from the 13th pick, we've already covered the Jets taking Elijah Vera-Tucker at 14. So we go straight to another quarterback. And the New England Patriots, they stand pat, because I've been waiting to make that joke, and their quarterback drops into their laps. Now, I'm not a massive Mac Jones fan, but taking Mac Jones at 15 and not giving up any capital to get him,
that's fine.
It couldn't have gone any better.
Absolutely no problem with Mac Jones going at 15. Just like I wouldn't have even had a problem with Mac Jones going at 12 to the 49ers originally. Would have been fine. Look, he's a good quarterback. As much as we 49er fans slated him, I think we'd all agree he's obviously got skills. He's got accuracy. He's won the national championship with Alabama. And he's a good quarterback.
This was the fit.
Perfect fit.
I said it in our mock. I moved up. Our mock obviously went different to real life.
Yeah.
But it was the fit all along. When you look at him, he's like a podgy Tom Brady. It's what Bill Belichick has wet dreams about. So it just made sense. It made sense all along, didn't it? He likes the system he's come out of from college. Like, it's just what they need.
Yeah, I agree. Look, it's fine. I'm really pleased we finally picked some form of successor. My only concern, I mentioned it to John, I may have even mentioned it when you did your mock, is that I don't see what Mac Jones learns from a year sat behind Cam, because those are two different systems.
I mentioned it to Griff. I've seen Cam giving sort of lectures about being a quarterback, and he's really, really good and really interesting. And whilst he's a different player than what Mac Jones is going to be, I think you still learn from Cam because, how to read an NFL offense, how, these tangibles that Cam has been doing for 10 years now and been doing well for 4 of them. He's I
wouldn't be surprised if you see Mac Jones sit for over a year. They love Cam at the Patriots.
They do love Cam, but he's only got a 1-year deal. And this is probably
last year he played with nobodies.
Yeah, I think
he's literally played with nobodies. So I think you wait and see. I don't think they're in any rush. If Cam with some pieces around him all of a sudden looks decent, they'll sign him up again and they'll just keep Mac waiting and they won't worry about it. They won't be paying him loads of money. I think they'll just let it unfold.
Yeah, they're not building a new dynasty here either. They want to be good this year. You go year on year.
Yeah, it would have been interesting to see what had happened if one of the top 3 wide receivers had also fallen to this point, because that was the other massive need on the Patriots, and that would have given them more of a choice to make, because they do desperately need a wide receiver. But I always think it was Jones if he fell.
They'd just be being outphoned by Cam anyway. So it doesn't
there's
matter.
Always a trade out there for a wide receiver who's got too big for his boots, or there's always one out there that's super fast, or there is always one out there that's better than what Patriots have got.
Like Julio.
Yep.
Just saying.
But there's always
if Julio Jones ends up on the Patriots.
But there's always a player like that out there, isn't there?
Yeah,
you did get Kendrick Bourne from us as well this year.
Oh yeah,
and Nelson Aguilar.
There's a reason I forgot about that.
Kendrick Bourne's all right.
Yeah, Kendrick Bourne's all right. He's probably an upgrade on what we did have, but it's still not a great wide receiving group.
Nobody.
Anyway, yeah, exactly. Thank you. You and your massive arms. You've got a wingspan of 4 inches. Right, the Cardinals at 16. They take linebacker Zaven Collins. Actually, I like this. I think the Cardinals need to continue to build a defense because it does let them down. And he was one of the best, if not the best, defensive player in the nation last year. Was he not? Did he not win like 2 massive awards? I'm fairly sure.
Bronco Nagurski Trophy and something else. He won
the Lombardi Award.
I still think it's a bit of a reach at 16. That's the only thing I'll say. I like the player again. Fulfilling
a need on the team, I actually really like this.
They took a linebacker last year in the first round. They took Isaiah Simmons in the first round. So is it a big need.
Their defense is not great.
Right, but I don't think it's a big need. I think they have bigger needs in terms of cornerback, defensive edge, even wide receiver, running back. I'd put it there because I don't think you can trust James Conner to be fit. I've got nothing against the player. I think he's a good player. I think he'll do well, but I just don't think it's I think it's a reach. I think they have bigger needs there. Would have preferred to see them trade down and pick him. Same for the next team as well, to be fair.
Yeah. So, has anybody got anything else to add on to the Cardinals? Because it's all gone very quiet on this. I'm feeling there's not a lot of love for this pick.
It's fine.
Just fine.
Yeah, it's
okay.
Fine.
Well, I know.
I think the only problem is there is not enough good quality cornerbacks coming out at the moment.
Well, there was still a couple left on the board.
But that's what they should have taken.
They could have gone Caleb Farley. They could have picked up Greg Newsome. Eric Stokes went as well. I think there were, even if you'd have traded back 2 or 3 spots.
I just think generally, if you look around the league, cornerback's a bit of a problem at the moment.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's difficult, and first-year cornerbacks tend to be fairly terrible anyway. Right, I know this is one we're all going to pile in on. So the Las Vegas Raiders select Alex Leatherwood, offensive tackle out of Alabama, who isn't a tackle, he's a guard. And no one knows why he went in the first round. Is that a fair assessment?
That's a very fair assessment. I listened to a podcast today, and I think they quoted Peter King, who said he rang round a number of different front offices to see if they had a first-round grade on Alex Leatherwood, and no one did. I think Mike Mayock and John Gruden they're okay at what they do, but I don't think they could. I don't think they know how to work a draft board, in terms of moving up and down to get the players you want or picking players of value. They could have waited to the second round, traded up a little bit if they felt the need to, and they could have got Alex Leatherwood, and they could have used the first round for someone more impactful. He's a good player, and he will start a guard, and he'll be a good player. He'll be there for a long time. So again, where they've taken this player is just it's a reach, big reach, and that's what they do. They did it last year as well.
My quote about this was, "This is the offensive version of taking Cleveland Farrell at number 4."
Yes. Yeah,
it's
that's exactly it.
Yes, this player's going to be good, but not this.
The cornerback last year as well, Damon Arnett. No one had him in the first round. I know, mock drafts by the media and by the likes of Kuiper and Schefter and whoever else does mock drafts. Yes, you've got to take it with a pinch of salt, but you can gauge where the general world is in terms of thinking about players, and Leatherwood wasn't in any of those. So it's just not a good front office, but they've got a quality player. Just they could have got him later on.
Jalen Phillips at number 18 to the Dolphins. Now we covered a little bit earlier. Has had some injury issues. If it works out, this is brilliant. I've said it already. I'll stick with that opinion. Jim, the concussion issues could lead to him being out of the league next year. So how massive a gamble is this? Or is it just a case of you've got 2 first-rounders, take a flyer?
I think the defense is already good in Miami. I think Brian Flores has done a great job there. I think he's coaching average players into a good unit. You put a good player into a good unit, I think he can excel. And maybe he doesn't have to play every single snap, but you can protect him a little bit. If he's 100% fit and if he has no fitness concerns, he's probably the best defensive player in this draft.
I think, Quitty Pay was still there, and you could argue that was the wiser choice.
Yeah, I think you could argue that. It'll be interesting to see. At the start of his college career, this guy was phenomenal. I'm not entirely sold, but the fact that they had 2 first-round picks, you kind of got to give them that. Before we get to Quitty Pay, though, we get Washington football team at 19. They take a linebacker, Jamin Davis.
I think he's better than Zaven Collins as well.
Yeah,
I think he could be one of the real stars of the draft. So I think that's a great pick. Washington defense is already amazing. I thought they were going to take a wide receiver. But their only real glaring need is quarterback, isn't it?
Yeah.
It is now, yeah.
Yeah, and so they clearly didn't fancy trying to move up. There was no talk of them moving up to get a quarterback. But if they're happy to sort of rumble on as they are, they've got Fitzmagic starting the season. the rest of the team looks really good. I would go as far as to say that right now in that division, they're probably the favourite team. Because
No.
you don't think that defence is way better than anything else being put out in that division?
Oh, I think the defence is much better. I still don't rate the offence.
Oh.
I think it's improved, but I think there's other area. I think the offensive. You could have seen him go offensive line with this pick. Gary said it. You could have seen him go wide receiver. I think there's still work. And look, Ryan Fitzpatrick is brilliant. Everyone loves him, but he's as likely to throw as many interceptions as he is touchdowns.
Yeah. It's just that you look at the other teams; they're not great. Speaking of the other teams,
I think the Giants are good now.
You reckon?
I think we've had another good off season.
I think you have had a good off season.
Adoree Jackson.
Yeah, but you've still got Daniel Jones.
That's the problem. That's the problem.
So
which is a massive problem, isn't it? Because out of the 32 teams, 20 of them are pretty good, but only 6 of them have got elite quarterbacks. So the other 14 don't matter, do they?
It's a fair point. The Giants were at 20 after their trade down. They took wide receiver Kadarius Toney, which is not the wide receiver they wanted out of the top, the big 3. But if you're going to take one in the first round, this guy is, he's rapid and he can run all the routes. So this is fine. Their wide receiver core now is very, very good.
This was a great pick. When we did our mock, I had the football team and I was going to take Toney at 19. I think that's about the right place in the draft for him. He's a very good wide. The Giants should be pleased with the work they did here.
Yeah,
I'm really pleased with our what we did. Considering we went in with 6 draft picks
and next year you will be probably drafting in the top 10 and you'll get an extra pick.
Yeah, because the Chicago. Well, we're going to get the Chicago pick, so they fucking suck, quite frankly.
So two picks in the top 10.
Yeah, could be.
No. With our defense, I think we stand. We've made up. We had a good defense. The whole thing with the Giants is, can we keep Saquon fit?
And I think we do sometimes have to remember that whole division was awful. So you can't compare their record versus the rest of the league.
No,
because
I mean,
we still beat you.
I get that, but
lots of teams did, to be fair.
Yeah, but my point is, it's not like the Niners versus the Giants, is it? My point is that was a poor division. So an 8-8 in that division isn't the same as an 8-8 in a stronger division, is it? Because you're playing all the other teams twice. So that's not the same,
no one's going 8-8 next year.
The strength of schedule isn't the same, is it? That's all I'm saying, John. That's not like a personal attack.
We said this about Baker Mayfield last year.
I said to John, the problem for the Giants is the fitness and availability of the offensive players. If they are all available at the same time, if you've got Saquon, Evan Ingram, Kadarius Toney, Sterling Shepard, Darius Slayton, and Kenny Golladay all available at the same time, Daniel Jones can't fail. But if you lose 2 of those pieces, any 2 of those pieces, I don't think Daniel Jones is good enough to make up the difference.
Yeah. So Kyle Rudolph makes a huge difference to us as well.
Yeah.
Evan Ingram had 11 drops last year.
Yeah.
Kyle Rudolph has had 1 in the last couple. That suddenly makes... I do worry for Evan Ingram going into next year. I don't think he'll be with us. But
I think this is what Baker Mayfield went through last year. This is the make or break year for Daniel Jones. And Griff, you're absolutely right. He needs all those pieces around him because he's not the quarterback to elevate players around him. He needs quality players around him, and I think he's got that now. Even the offensive line is better. There's a good defense. I mean, you also, the Giants picked up Azeez Ojulari in the second round, which is an amazing pickup for a second round pick. I think this comes down to Jones, and if he's shit, then next year you pick up a new quarterback. So you've got to, even if you have an average year, and you believe that Daniel Jones isn't the guy, you can at least use that draft ammo to move up in the draft and hopefully take whoever the better quarterback is that's coming out.
We've got 2 first rounders to trade them away.
That's what I mean. Move up into the top 3 if you have to.
You can give both of those first rounders away to Green Bay and have Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah.
Okay, so the 21st pick, Indianapolis Colts take the aforementioned Kwity Paye. Really like this pick for an already excellent defense. I think just to add more pressure on opposing quarterbacks. I don't mind this at all. None of the premium O linemen were left. You will always want more O linemen when you've got Carson Wentz, but a case of best player that they could have fall to them.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think it's the best pick to make. I'm not sure about the rest of their draft.
I've heard bad things about their draft, if I'm honest.
I just think, Costanzo, he retired the left tackle. So at some point, you're going to need to replace him. And you've got Carson Wentz, right? I like Carson Wentz. I go against the grain on this podcast. I think he's a decent quarterback. But let's face it, he has had injury problems. You need to keep him upright. So, they didn't invest in any offensive lineman until the 7th round. So, I don't know. I feel like they missed
looks like they missed an opportunity a little bit. I mean, got one coming up in a second.
Exactly.
That O-line was good last year, though, wasn't it?
Yeah, but it had
Philip Rivers was. Yeah.
You can't have a good O-line without a decent left tackle.
Yeah. Whether they there's been rumours they'll move Quentin Nelson to left tackle from left guard. I feel then it's easier to kind of put a half decent player in guard and get some production out of him. But I just feel you're just wasting good talent there. Anyway.
Yeah,
Kwity Paye, edge rush was a need for them. So Kwity Paye as a good edge rusher is a good pick. So can't complain.
Fair enough. In the same division, the Tennessee Titans. Now, the Titans, do you know who their wide receivers are?
AJ Brown.
And? Exactly. So it's AJ Brown.
Doesn't matter once you say AJ Brown.
And Derrick Henry.
Yeah, they're just going to run Derrick Henry up the middle.
Well, he's also had 4 million carries. But instead of taking an offensive player to help them out on that side of the ball, they take the most injured cornerback in the draft, Caleb Farley, who some teams have taken off their draft board entirely because of the back surgeries that he's had already.
It was a need. Cornerback was definitely a need. And I think like Jalen Phillips, without those injuries, probably the best cornerback in the draft.
Yeah.
But they're very real injuries, very recent injuries.
Back injuries. It's not like a broken leg that you can just recover from. Back injuries go on forever and ever. They don't stop.
And he literally had surgery on it weeks ago.
It feels like a reach because they have a need, as opposed to perhaps doing what the Colts did and taking the best player available.
They do have a history of it. They took Jeffrey Simmons, the defensive tackle, a couple of years back, and he again, really good potential, but he came into the draft process with a serious injury. He was out for the whole year. And they managed to get him back, and they get production from it. So it's something they're not scared of, and they do. They picked up a few other players who can fill some of those needs later on in the draft. So I don't know. Yeah, I think he could, if he's fit, he's going to be a great addition. But for me, that's a bigger if there than it is for Jalen Phillips.
Yeah, I don't know. I just feel like this team might be taking a backward step this season because they haven't drafted more on the offensive side of the ball. I know they've got the best running back in the game. But to answer the question that I started this with, Josh Reynolds and Chester Rodgers are the next two wide receivers on the depth chart after AJ Brown. That doesn't fill me with. Bearing in mind they also lost Johnny Smith.
Yeah, the tight end.
It just doesn't look great for. We'll get to see whether Tannehill is an elevator or not, basically, and I'm not sure he is. The Minnesota Vikings at 23. Now they were probably delighted that Christian Darrisaw fell to them. The offensive. This is who I think Colts should have taken. And I think
did this happen in our mock draft, John? Something very similar.
Pretty sure.
Yeah, we got this one right, didn't we? Yeah.
Oh, really?
I think we said at the time, if this happens, it is the perfect need for them.
Yeah.
And if they get him there, they will be delighted. So that just fell great for them, didn't it?
It really did. This is absolutely an area of need for the Vikings. And I think, again, a bit like the Patriots, you wouldn't necessarily trade up for this player. But if he falls in your lap, you don't turn it down. And
they took a quarterback, didn't they? What, third round?
They took Kellen Mond in the third round. And just, I'm just waiting and seeing on this one because I think if Kirk Cousins isn't very good, you might see some Kellen Mond. This guy slings the ball. He is everything that Kirk Cousins isn't. And I just got a feeling that Kirk Cousins is in a lot of trouble now if he doesn't start producing, because this team isn't as good as the one he joined when they were supposed to be a quarterback away from a Super Bowl. So if he doesn't start elevating players, they've got to start looking to move on.
Yep. I mean, back to Darisaw. I mean, if you look, this is what the Raiders should have done: trade back and get a good player. The Vikings traded back and probably got the same player that it would have taken where they were 13 or 14. So I think that's an excellent pick there. I think Kellen Mond is definitely a project. You're right. He's got a good arm and a good release. Accuracy is probably the biggest issue on him.
Number 24, Pittsburgh Steelers fill a massive need for them. They take running back Najee Harris. They could have gone O-line if Darisaw was still there, but taking the running back is fine. I know a lot of people thought there were no first-round running backs in this, but at this end of the first round, it's about filling the need you have, not necessarily looking for that diamond in the rough. And Harris, Etienne, or Jackson?
Javonte Williams.
Javonte Williams, sorry. Any one of those three to the Steelers, I think, is fine. So I like the Harris pick.
Yeah, I like the pick. I think he is the only first-round running back, and that's going to cause an argument coming up in the next pick. But he walks into that team. He is the number one running back. You want to see him get 1,000 yards rushing at least this year. He has to.
Great catching back as well.
Yeah, great passing back.
Very similar to Bell coming out of college. This guy.
Yeah, well, and then the next running back off the board went with the very next pick. So the Jacksonville Jaguars with their second first-round pick at number 25.
No. That's Trevor Lawrence's pick. The Jags picked the first pick, and then they gave the 25th pick to Trevor Lawrence, and they let him pick his favourite friend.
And that's fine, apart from they then came out and said, well, we've got James Robinson and Carlos Hyde, first and second down running back. So Travis is here for the third downs. And you're like, no, that's
first
a
round pick.
What are you doing? Either Carlos Hyde's getting cut, which is possible, or James Robinson's getting traded, which is possible, I suppose. But one of those two won't be there if they're going to use Travis Etienne. You don't spend a first-round pick on a running back and not play him.
Didn't like this pick. Like the player. I just thought this was a wasted pick. There were so many other...
Too rich for me, and they got so many...
Yeah, too rich. So many other players you could have taken, which would have improved the team more. I think Travis Etienne is an excellent back. I genuinely do. But you're right. They've got to... A decent running back and Carlos Hyde. You don't need another one.
No, it seems a bit.
It's why they'll be picking in the top 5 next year.
Yes, agreed.
Because they are a shit franchise.
Oh, he's putting it so lovingly.
I like the way you really search for that word there, John. They are a.
I was gonna
shit franchise.
I was trying to think of a nice way to say it, but then I just thought I'd be really truthful. They're shit.
Number 26, a team that are no longer as shit. The Cleveland Browns take cornerback Greg Newsome second. Look, I think Cleveland had the best draft out of all the teams, if I'm honest, because they could pretty much take the best player that fell to them in each round. I like this pick. I think he's ready to play in the NFL. I would probably have taken him over Caleb Farley just because of the surgeries, so maybe the Titans have missed out there. Whether or not it was the prime need on the team, I don't know, but of the good players that were left, I think this is a really solid pickup.
Never hurts to have cornerback depth. I think I agree. They had a great draft. The second round pick of Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah was an absolute steal.
Yeah.
But this is a good pick. Like I said, he kind of teams up with Denzel Ward and Greedy Williams in that backfield, and it's going to be difficult to pass against Cleveland with that pass rush and now that backfield set up to be in the playoffs at the very least.
Oh, definitely. The Ravens at 27. Now, I like the fact that they went for a wide receiver. It may have been a bit too early for Rashad Bateman for me, but pickings were getting slim. There had been 4 receivers off the board already at this point. So
I think if you put the two Ravens picks together, I suppose I was just surprised they didn't take a offensive lineman after losing Brown. when I drafted for him in our mock, that was one of the key things I tried to address. And I think they went a bit.
Yeah, because
Lamar Jackson still won't throw the ball, will he? So,
well,
like Paul said it last time. It's you've got Hollywood Brown, and I know there's not loads else, but it was that the number one need they had.
No, it probably wasn't the number one need they had, but they do need more playmakers in order to allow him to throw more. You can't keep running him forever; it won't work.
We should also mention they've signed Villanueva this week today, haven't they?
Yes, they have.
Yeah, we didn't know that at the time.
We didn't know that.
No, but as you know,
they probably did, but
they probably knew that was happening because it's been sort of muted on and off. It's official now. That's why they haven't signed an O-lineman in the draft.
Villanueva has been one of the best O-linemen in the league in the last 8 years.
Yep.
The reason the Steelers have let him go is because his production has fallen off a cliff. He was one of the reasons that Big Ben was running for his life. He just didn't look like the same player. So
waddling for his life.
Unless they felt it was an injury issue that he can overcome, he's not the player that he was in Pittsburgh. So it's not a direct replacement for the fantastic player that the Ravens have lost. But I agree. I'd have still taken an O-lineman. They went with Adafe away at 31. Defensive edge out of Penn State. Again, feels like a reach for me, but they do like a good defensive player.
Not a huge reach, but a big reach. I watched what's the Sky podcast TV program Neil Reynolds does with Jeff. Anyway, I watched that last night, and Jeff Reinbold had a great stat in terms of Adefe Owe. In that his first NFL sack will be his first sack.
Really?
Yeah, he didn't record a single sack in the college game.
Oh, well, that's.
Well, when Trevor Lawrence loses in week 1, it'll be his first ever loss. He didn't lose in high school, and he didn't lose in college.
You got beaten by Ohio State.
Was it? No, when was it? No, maybe not Trevor Lawrence. One of the new quarterbacks.
Yeah,
Trey Lance.
Trey Lance.
Could have been Trey Lance.
Has never lost.
No, well, he'll soon get used to that. Speaking of huge reaches, 28, New Orleans Saints take Peyton Turner. Again, defensive edge. This guy was a late second rounder on most boards at best. What was the thinking here?
Edge rush was a need, but yeah, there are other players that they could have picked up, which would have addressed bigger
Instant
needs.
Impact on this team.
The next pick is Eric Stokes, cornerback. The Saints have got a big need at cornerback, especially considering like Marcus Latimer's coming into his final year. They got a need at safety. Trayvon Morague was still there. They got a need at guard, and there were plenty of offensive tackles they could have taken, which they could have moved inside to guard. So yeah, this was probably one of the shocks of the night, realistically. Just because you're right, no one had him on the radar to go in the first round.
No, it's a surprise. Maybe they feel there's something, and if there's a team that can coach players that maybe other teams couldn't, the Saints would be one of the 4 or 5 teams you say could do that. But didn't they reach on Marcus Davenport? And I know
they gave up 2 first-round picks for Davenport.
But he hasn't been that productive, has he?
No, he hasn't.
So I don't know. Maybe there's some lack of evaluation in the process there.
Davenport had 1.5 sacks last year. I mean, it's just more than Adefe Owe had.
Eric Stokes to the Packers.
But it's still only 1.5 more than I had.
Yes.
Do you have incredible length?
Not my arms, though.
No. So, Eric Stokes to the Packers, cornerback out of Georgia. Yes, the Packers always need to improve their defense. Did they do this just to stick 2 fingers up to Aaron Rodgers?
I think they had a plan. They just stuck to it, and they're like, "We're not going to change our plan just because Aaron Rodgers has publicly thrown his toys out of the pram."
Which, if that's true, and they did stick to their plan, that's fine. He is a late first round or early second round pickup.
Yeah, but then on the flip side, you then question the plan, don't you? You then say,
I'm not saying the plan is correct, but I'm giving them props for sticking to the plan in the face of adversity. I like the next pick. The Bills at 30 take Gregory Rousseau, defensive edge. I really like Gregory Rousseau. I know some people said he was a mid-second round talent, but I think this guy's going to be really good.
He suffered massively from sitting out last year, so he didn't have any production. But I can say this last week, towards the end of 2019, he was probably considered going to be the top edge rusher going into the 2020. So he's got the physical traits. He perhaps hasn't got the pass rushing skills, but you can teach skills. You can't teach traits or physicality or size or anything like that. That's just what it is. They can teach him how to get past offensive linemen, and he could be the steal of the draft. Realistically, could be. Well, I'm not saying he is.
I really agree with you. I think it'll be him or Phillips for me. I think one of those two could be certainly the defensive steal. Final pick in the first round, the reigning champion Tampa Bay Buccaneers take Joe Tryon. Now they didn't have any needs for me at the Bucs, so case of just taking the player they most like. I think. Yeah,
that's exactly it. You're right. They bring all 22 starters back,
and Antonio
Brown. So just pick the player you like most. And you can never have too many edge rushers on the team.
No, it's a depth selection rather than anything else. Anybody got anything to add on the first round?
Nothing on the first round.
No. Anybody like to pick out players from the second through to seventh rounds that they think deserve a mention here?
I felt Tevin Jenkins should have gone in the first round. The Bears pick him up, and that's a big need for the Bears, and I think they've done well to grab him there. We mentioned Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, who dropped down to the 52nd pick. And again, a really good pickup. I really love Nick Bolton, the linebacker for Kansas City. He's an instant starter. The other one I want to pick up is Tampa's second pick, which was Kyle Trask, the quarterback. Yep. He's now going to sit behind. Brilliant, because I think he sits behind Tom Brady, and then he's potentially taking over. So
I really like that pick. I said to you before, I really rated Kyle Trask. I think that's a great pick. I wanted to give mention to the Raiders for taking Trevor Morig in the second round. To say
everyone said it at the time. You switch those two picks around, and everyone's like, "Okay, that's cool.
That's good." Yeah, it's odd that Morig fell this far for me. Yeah. But I quite like what they did in the second round. That's fine. Equally, I like what the Patriots did in the second round. Christian Barmore, defensive tackle at number 38. Yeah. That guy could have gone in the first round, no problem. No one would have raised an eyelid if he'd gone, towards the end of the first round. Yeah, he was liked him more to the Jets. I think that's great.
Love that.
I'm not sure why the Broncos have taken Javonte Williams at running back. I'm not sure.
Not sure why they traded up to do it.
No.
They've got a good running back in Melvin Gordon. So, and Philip Lindsay's still there getting paid 2/5 of fuck all. So, keep working on that. Where was I going to go? The 49ers picking up two running backs. One, Trey Sermon, I think is going to be excellent. Like, you don't need to be a Javonte Williams or Travis Etienne to work in that running scheme. So, they just stock up on running backs. And,
doesn't he have injury history again, though?
Yeah, but we've got other running backs
in the treatment room.
Yeah, but just stock up. If it's an issue,
gone,
get depth.
so there's space on the treatment table.
Yeah,
so we've drafted one to keep the doctors busy.
Yeah. Also, want to call out that the Jets drafted Michael Carter twice.
Yeah,
one's a safety, one's a running back. Brilliant, love that.
And do you see Quinnen Williams broke his foot as well today?
Yeah, he's out for 6 to 8 weeks, I think.
Wow. Anybody remember who the Houston Texans' first selection in this draft was?
I do. It's a quarterback by the name of Davis Mills.
Quarterback Davis Mills. Now, what does this tell you about the Deshaun Watson situation? That their first pick, and they only had 3.
He's not playing this year.
Yeah, actually, the Texans have done something pretty sensible.
Yeah, that's what I think. They've got Tyrod. And I think you're going to be seeing Tyrod. And then Davis Mills is not a player I dislike. I think he's an all right project of a player, but you might be seeing him this season. I think they've finally realised that Watson might not play.
I don't think he's going to be playing again for Houston ever.
No. So
have they got picks next year?
Yeah, they got first round pick next year now.
Oh, fuck for that. Because as well, we should also mention, when you're talking about good GMing, what Miami did with the pick they got for Laramie Tunsil and what they've turned it into. It's half a team.
I mean, it's only Bill O'Brien with half a brain. Imagine how good the Texans would have been. Davis Mills went one pick after Kellen Mond to the Vikings. So the other interesting quarterback that was taken was Ian Book, who is the highest
Saints
scoring or most winningest, Notre Dame quarterback of all time. Has gone to sit and learn the system at the Saints as we get to watch the fight between Jameis and what's his name? The other fella whose name
Taysom Hill.
That's it. Christ, it's getting late at night. And I really like the pick of Ian Book. He's not an outstanding arm talent, but he's a processor, which is what Breeze was. So maybe that works. That's a good fit for a late round pick on a quarterback for me.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. Take a project. Take a project because Jameis is going to start off the year as the starter. Take someone who's proved that he can win in the college game. Yeah, he's not amazing, but when you've got a coach like Sean Payton, you don't need to have an amazing quarterback, I don't think.
No. Anybody want to mention any other names? I know there were one or two entertaining names that we had mentioned earlier. Chubba Hubbard is still my favourite by far.
Isaiah Loudermilk.
Isaiah Loudermilk, absolutely.
Defensive tackle for Pittsburgh.
There's always one or two. They deserve a mention, in my opinion. But yeah, all in all, solid first round drafting. Who did the best in the first round? Just the first round. Who got the best pick? Is it just default the Jags? Is it default the Falcons?
I don't think it's the Jags because I don't rate that second pick they had.
Giants.
I think Chargers.
The old Chargers.
Yeah, I'd be inclined to agree with either of those. I actually think the Patriots not having to move to get their quarterback is a great pickup as well. So, okay, John, any particular opinion?
I quite like what the Giants did, as Gary just pointed out. Getting a pick for next year, I think, helps us.
Yeah, great call. And the worst first round?
Raiders.
Yeah.
Huge reach.
I know
we said
Ravens because I don't think that's done them enough of a favour.
I think the Ravens took players which I think do. I know we took the piss out of it away because he's never got a sack, but he has got quality. He has got traits, and I think Bateman is also another end of the first round wide receiver. Alex Leatherwood, I think, is a huge reach. And I think they've shown once again that they can't manage the draft board.
And Gary's showing once again that he can't manage a mute button. Right. Well, thank you for that in-depth look into the NFL draft. We will bring tonight's incredibly long podcast to a halt while Jim's dog's still yelling in the background and before Gary chokes to death. Anybody got anything else they'd like to add?
This is our last Skype podcast, hopefully, for a while.
Way! We're all going back round Gary's. Don't tell his wife.
Kayvon Thibodeau, number 1 pick for next year, I reckon. Edge rusher out of Oregon.
I mean, as well.
I'm already starting to look at next year.
We can't judge these picks until next year.
No, 3 years.
Really, 3 years, really. But yeah, because I was just looking at what we did last year, and some of these players we picked last year, but they're still a sort of no-name nobodies because it's a gamble on talent. It always is.
Of course. Right. Well, with that gamble on talent, I will bring tonight's podcast to an end. Gentlemen, thank you. It's been a pleasure as always. Good night.
Bye.
Night.